Hello, good evening, good morning, good insert the verb or phrase that describes your time zone. How are you? So this is the Fusion meetup, and I have just duffed the introduction because I am not awake enough because caffeine. It wears off eventually. So hi, I'm Mike. I'm going to be the host this evening. We can all be very thankful for Hannah, as always, being an amazing gem and putting this all together. So I actually have introduction slides and all this stuff because part of me is sometimes professional. I say sometimes. So, hello, this is the Fusion Meetup. This is March's edition. Last one was, I believe, September, or is it November last year? I actually can't remember. I probably should do. I was hosting that. And this one we have 3 speakers instead of 4. But they're ones that I am exceedingly curious about. It's 6 p.m. No excuse. Oh, no, there's always an excuse for caffeine. Anyway, so first up, we have our sponsors to say thank you to. We've got to say thank you to Majestic, who are sponsoring us, which is brilliant. They are an amazing company and actively support the community. And I actually have to single-handedly say thanks to Steve quite a few times for saving my butt in conversations, and Curry. And so I always hate doing this bit. We now also have our partners, the organizations that we as Fusion are involved with and like to help. So there's Cryogenics, our lovely Mr. Langridge, Code Your Future, Hack the Midlands, Mind, CovHack, which was last month, if I remember correctly. I hope Mr. Vickery is in the crowd to correct me if I was wrong. And Cobar Birmingham. Oh, and School of Code, where I believe their part-time course is starting now. So if you've missed it, that's a shame, but it's going to be amazing, all the people that come from there. And as always, we do have a code of conduct. So if you haven't read the code of conduct before, it is available at thefusionhub.co.uk/code-of-conduct. If you're participating in the chat, please respect the code of conduct. The quickest way to translate it would be, don't be a jerk. So be nice, play nice, and be friendly. And I think that's pretty much everything. I am now going to drag a Hannah in so she can say hi. Hi, Hannah.
Hello. How are you? Can I ask you that, considering I spoke to you like 10 minutes ago?
It's a polite thing. We all fake it now for the internet, don't we? It's like, hi, this is a Zoom call. It's the 15th of today. Are you doing great? Yeah.
It's been such a long time. We've actually just had such a funny chat about Zoom calls, and I'm glad that everyone's on the same page. Like Charity and Ben and Jana are absolutely maxed out with the whole virtual world. And here we are with another virtual fusion, but tonight is going to be so good. I have been so excited about this. Which is what I'm going to introduce the first speaker. I've kind of fester, and I was literally hounding this woman for so long, probably just over a year, maybe a little bit longer. She was actually recommended to me by Fiona Thomas, who she did that amazing talk on it. Well, she's got a book out, hasn't she? Surviving Depression in a Digital Age. She was awesome. Anyway, so she recommended that I get in touch with Jana Dowling. And after having a look, like semi-stalking her, maybe, in a nice, polite way, and a non-creepy way, the stuff that Jana's done is awesome. So she has agreed to join us tonight. Yay! And so she's the founder of My RKO, which is a mental fitness app. So her talk is basically her journey and her story from suicidal to successful tech entrepreneur. And she's going to talk a little bit about why she created the app and how she did it. So here she is.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for that really nice introduction. That's super kind of you. I was getting bigged up right at the beginning. It's always nice. Hi, everybody that's watching. Yeah, exactly as Hannah said, I'm going to just run you through my story and how I got to where I am. I will share my screen in just one moment, but in essence, just to introduce myself, I'm an entrepreneur. So the first business I ever built was the one I'm about to tell you about, but things never go the way you want them to, and there's lots of bumps in the road, which I'll tell you about. I also work across 2 other startups right now. One's called Bike Parking, which is spelled BYKE parking, and that's launching in about 2 weeks, which is an app that helps people find motorbike and scooter parking around London and beyond. And I'm also working at a company called Sweatcoin, where I'm head of innovation in Sweatcoin for Good, which is a health tech app that helps people, rewards people's activity and their movement with coins that they can use to purchase things in a marketplace. So I'm actually working across quite a few different startups, which is the nature of being an entrepreneur and surviving COVID with business, which is really tricky. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I built RKO, which is like my baby startup. And I will just share my screen now. Let's see, is this, am I sharing now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Full screen mode, here we go. So I'll start by telling you how I began this journey. It was about 4 years ago. I was working in telly. I've always worked in media, not tech. I don't have a degree or anything actually in tech. I used to work in telly and I used to do stand-up comedy. And I was really enjoying my life. I went and did a 20-minute set in Edinburgh, a run in Edinburgh, and it went really well. I was really enjoying myself. And when I got back to work, I was just working on a standard TV show for Channel 5. I just started to like not feel good. I started to feel quite tired all the time, and I got to the point where I was looking at my watch and just dying to get back home so I could be in bed and watching telly by 7:30. And obviously that wasn't really normal for my character. So my friends kind of pointed it out and, you know, said, oh, listen, your behavior's really changed. You should probably really think about going to see a doctor. So that's exactly what I did. I went to see a doctor. I got diagnosed with depression and I got given some antidepressants. So being the efficient production manager that I was, I zoomed via a pharmacy on my way back from the doctor's appointment, picked up my prescription and just took them on the first day without really reading the label. And while I was taking that medication at the beginning, I just couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't do anything at work. I was trying to run a show and my brain just felt like cotton wool. Like I couldn't really do like anything. And I was actually really worried that I was going to lose my job. So I did what I shouldn't have done. I made the decision to throw my medication in the bin and just stop taking it. And 6 weeks later, after I stopped taking my medication, I had what doctors call a severe depressive episode. So I spent 5 weeks under 24-hour watch as a high-risk suicide patient. Obviously, I was really, really unwell. I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to talk to people. I couldn't use my phone. I was really in quite a bad place. And was lucky enough to see lots of really good doctors. And I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder and put on a different type of medication, which started working. And as I was coming out of my depressive episode, I kind of was able to take a step back, and I could see what had happened didn't just happen to me. Like it happened to everyone around me. It happened to my friends, it happened to my family. Like it happened to my work colleagues. I literally just didn't show up to work one day. And I'm sure if you guys are part of a team, if one of your team leaders or any person in your team just disappears and doesn't show up, it has an impact. And I realized that, you know, it impacted everybody negatively. It obviously impacted me negatively, but it impacted everyone else negatively. And I just really didn't want that to be the case. I didn't want to be somebody who had that impact. And I knew I wasn't well enough to work, but I'm a grafter and I do like working. So I kind of set my recovery up like a job. And I started tracking every single thing that I was doing. And I built out a tracking system that I gridded over one sheet of A4 paper so that I could understand all of my behaviors, all of my symptoms, my medication, everything I was doing to see how it was connected and how it interacted. And I used that data to make decisions. So I didn't make decisions based on how I felt about something. I made decisions based on the data that I collected. And I got back into work super, super quick. So I'll just show you. By the way, the first time I built this tracking system, I literally had an A4 sheet of paper and a ruler and a pencil and ruled it out. So it looks very neat now. But back then it was really, really at the beginning. So this is what I built. And essentially it was kind of like, it was a tracker for everything I was doing. I guess trinary code, lots of zeros, ones, twos, and threes. But as I was doing this, I could read this myself, and I could understand how something that was happening or something I was doing on a Tuesday was impacting me on a Thursday. Or I learned that, caffeine has a huge impact on my behavior. And I read this data and I started to change my behaviors. And obviously this data over time taught me a huge amount about myself. And I was able to get back to work really quick. So from the beginning of my episode to getting back to work was 3 months. And I went straight back into television, and I actually ended up working online, doing online viral videos for clients. And I got back into a senior position super quickly. And I realized it was because I kind of taken it on like a job and built it out so structurally, and kind of removed that emotional element. Really helped me progress really, really quickly through changing my behaviors to make sure that I stayed well. And I felt really lucky. And I also was really aware that I went through this journey in a really privileged way. My parents helped me pay for my rent, so I didn't lose my flat, which I would have done because I'd stopped working and things like that. So I had a lot of help that most people don't really have access to. And I had lots of people coming up to me who either had experienced something similar or were about to lose their jobs or wanted to get back into work and didn't really know what to do, but they'd had sort of a really big mental health issue. And I kept hearing myself say, oh God, you should track yourself. I built this thing, just, track your things, look at your behaviors, pay attention to it. And I realized that, saying that wasn't actually going to help anyone at all. So I wanted to do something more, and I wanted to give back. So I set up a social enterprise that I called the 888 Collective. I should never be allowed to name companies, because when you call people and say it's the 888 Collective, it's the most difficult name for a company. But anyway, I called it the 888 Collective. And it was a social enterprise focused on helping people with mental health issues just get back into work. That's all I wanted to do. And I originally wanted to get a cafe and a shop kind of situation going and have people in that space, because I think it's quite a simple solution. But I looked into the cost of that, and I don't know if anyone out there actually runs a cafe or a pub or anything, but it's financially just looked like a big black hole for money. It was a lot of money going out and not much coming in. So instead of doing that, because I couldn't afford to, I went and bought myself a secondhand panini machine from the basement of a pub. And I got myself a free shed space in East London, and I started selling tea and toasties out of a shed. And I hired anyone that had a mental health issue that wanted a job. I paid them for their time, and I taught them my tracking system. It worked really well. It went really quickly. It was freezing in the shed. It was December, like a couple of years ago. It was absolutely freezing. So I went and knocked on the local WeWork door and asked if we could sell to their clients. And they said we could. So we went in there, and then we went into all the WeWorks all around London. And people who were working with me started to leave to go and get real jobs, which was awesome. And the NHS started sending people to me, and job centres started sending people to me. So it really started to work really well. And I started to see the impact that that tracking system was having on people. Here's some pictures of us. It's really dark, but it was actually 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was just the middle of winter. That's our little shed. And some of the people that I worked with serving up in the WeWorks. So we had a really good time, and I realized that it was building momentum quite a lot. So I wanted to try and help more people. So I took what I was teaching and I just built it into a course. And I built it into a course, and I taught it from lots of different locations. And at the end of the course, we would give every single person that finished the course a shift in work. So I would go and convince East London chefs and managers to let us take over their restaurant for a whole evening, and then I would fully staff that restaurant with the graduates. So anyone that finished the personal development and mental fitness course would have their first paid shift back in work, and that worked really well. We had lots of people come through. We had lots of people who hadn't worked for like 4 years, and for them going through the course and then doing a shift in work made a huge difference to their lives. This is a little bit of a look about what happened. I think that was under an archway in London Fields at some point. And Gracie here is one of the people that came on our course. I flicked through a slide earlier that I missed, and it's just a point that I like to bring up because it was something I really, really learned with the 888 Collective, was that there were really no barriers to people wanting to be involved in what we were doing, because we looked like an East London fashion brand. And we were so far away from what the average person thinks mental health issues or mental health companies should look like. And we were doing this, seemingly cool thing, selling tea and toasters out of cheddar, so simple. And, taking over East London restaurants, that we really crossed so many barriers with people who didn't have mental health issues, who then sort of started to get interested in what I was doing. And while that was happening, people who didn't have mental health issues started using my tracking system. And they kept saying to me, Jana, you need to get this off a piece of paper because it's too annoying to use. So, please, can you build this into something that we can use on our phone? And that's when I went about building RKO. I'll just stop sharing my screen right now because and come back to you guys. So RKO is really my baby, and what I did was I set up the tracking system into an app. So what I did was I took that sort of spreadsheet and built it into an algorithm that can help people with managing and understanding their behaviors. So essentially what the app does is it tracks all of your behaviors, then it tracks all of your challenges. I say all. You can select up to 5 life challenges, and that can be anything from financial stress, general stress, to anxiety, worry, anger, physical pain. Any challenge that you have in your life, it simply tracks both of those things and then allows you to compare the data sets. So you can literally see whether your sleep has any correlation to your work stress or not. And then the app can help point you in the right directions. So as I said before, I don't have a degree. I didn't ever work in tech, and I built out this social enterprise and this tracking system that I knew kind of would be useful, and people were sort of asking me to build it into tech, and I had to go, right, well, how am I going to build this into a company? So I started from the very beginning. I didn't really know what I was doing. I spoke to as many people as I possibly could. I learned how to start pitching, and we raised £100,000 for our pre-seed investment. I built out a beta version of the app and put a video up on LinkedIn, and 1,000 people downloaded it in 24 hours, which was awesome. So we tested that. And then I kept building the company out over the year. And in December 2019, I signed $1 million VC investment into RKO, which was absolutely awesome. I was super thrilled. But then COVID hit, and we ended up having sort of, I guess, like trouble. Well, we just had trouble with the VC, and the payment kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So as an entrepreneur, I did what you always do to survive. And that's, I basically just cracked on and kept the whole thing going by essentially running my own other startups and working with other companies. So that's how I got to where I am. I feel like I'm sort of on time for telling my story and what I've done. Does anyone have any questions? I don't seem to be able to see where you guys are right now. So hopefully I will be able to get you guys back up on my computer.
Good Lord. I apologize for that. I should have been more on the ball. I had a mouthful of nuts.
Oh, don't worry. I'm sorry. I finished quite quickly. I can't see you guys anywhere. That's my problem. So I can't see any questions or anything.
Okay. The crowd are warming up for questions, as they are. Listen to me, crowd. Please give me questions. Because I do have some of my own. Because I'm actually curious.
Yeah.
How have you managed to maintain your mental health during the pandemic with trying to keep something that's helping support mental health whilst also running other businesses simultaneously?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I really love this question because the answer is I built a mental fitness tracking system. So one of the things I do, obviously, as a founder, you obviously always use what you build, but that's why I know it's so important to get it out there. So using the tracking system that I have genuinely works. And on top of all the other things I'm doing, I have bipolar disorder, which is something that is quite a tricky thing to manage. But obviously having built Archaeo and been learning about how to sort of make the algorithm work and make everything work in the same way it did on a piece of paper, I've learned so much about myself. So I intrinsically know like ridiculously small things about myself. Like I mentioned, if I have a whole cup of caffeine, like a coffee, I will become manic 2 days later. And if I was to go to a doctor, they would say, well, that's impossible because caffeine goes through your system in 24 hours. So it's not the reason you feel manic. But through my tracking, I can see that cup of coffee actually means that I then don't eat, which then means I probably drink more coffee, which then means I don't sleep properly, which then once I've done not eaten properly or slept properly for 2 nights, does push somebody that has bipolar disorder into sort of a slight manic state. So for me, it is that cup of coffee that ends me up, that takes me there to that point. So really tracking myself over and over and over for 4 years now, I know the tiniest things about myself. So I can, when things get really tough and stressful, which they have been, I mean, this time last year, my VC investment was supposed to come in and I actually had 170 grand worth of invoices to pay and no money in my account. And a VC saying to me, we're probably not going to give it to you for another 6 months because of COVID. So I've had huge amounts of pressure, but I really understand just the little tiny things that I can do every day to take care of myself so that I stay really strong, like mentally really strong. And that's why I really like, when you build something, you're like, oh no, this really works. And it doesn't just work for me, but it's also the same thing of looking at it in a way that we're not just talking about mental health, we're talking about mental fitness. And I guess I didn't mention that about Archaeo, is that in the same way that I did about the 888 Collective, I'm building a mental fitness brand so that with this tracking system, that we look at taking care of our mental fitness in the same way we do our physical fitness. So if, for example, you've become less fit or you've put on weight, you wouldn't think twice about saying to your mate, like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym or I'm going to get a PT and I'm going to go to bed early because I'm going to get up and train in the morning and I'm going to change my diet. You wouldn't even question having that conversation with your friend about being physically fit. So that's what Archaeo is here to do about mental fitness, like take all that heavy emotional weight away from it and just use the raw data to help you understand how your behaviors help you or hinder you in managing your life challenges.
Okay. It's nice to know that you're actually dog fooding is helping to keep you alive. Yeah. Most people, that causes stress because it means you find more problems, but surprisingly, it's actually helping you.
Well, I think if you find your problems and then you choose to take an action to solve them, then you win. But if you're just finding problems and you're not doing anything and you're just cataloging problems, then I think that's going to be a problem for anyone. I mean, if I just had the list of things that were going wrong without checking any of them off and changing things so they got better, I'd probably feel uncomfortable with my life.
And the questions have finally come in from the audience. Well, one's not a question, it's a compliment, which is, I've been doing a similar tracking thing with spreadsheets, but the app sounds so much better, especially for the analysis. I must admit, apps where you actually put some time into thinking how to analyze qualitative data is hard, and there's somebody else doing it makes life easier. Mm-hmm. Here's one question, which surprisingly you didn't actually say. Is the app available at the moment?
So it's not at the moment. We've taken the beta version down, but we are doing a full launch across the UK in June this year. So if you want to sign up for it so that you can get an early bird version of it, probably in May, you can just go to the website and sign up, and I'll make sure you get a version of of it.
And I'm just going to create a banner for that. If I remember correctly, it's myRKO.com.
Yes, correct.
Cool. So for everybody looking for the domain, that is the domain to look for, myRKO.com. I'll drop it into the chat as well so people can find it.
Yes.
Here's a question for you. Oh, God, several of them popped up at once. Going from not much tech experience, how do you go about upskilling yourself in the area and finding the right people to work with?
So great question. Thank you. I guess the first thing, LinkedIn is an amazing platform. LinkedIn is free and it's an amazing platform where you can reach out to anybody. And that's exactly what I did. I just sat down and I was like, who can help me? Who do I know? And somebody knew somebody who knew somebody. And I always just asked. I was always really honest and I just asked for help. I said, I don't know. I don't understand how to do this, but I have this thing. And because I built the 888 Collective and I'd sold tea and toesies out of a shed and I had a piece of paper and I had proof that what I'd done had worked, people jumped on quite quickly to help me and support me. But not having any tech experience was really difficult because building out the first version, I had no understanding of I didn't even know what a sprint was. I didn't know what React or I didn't know anything. And so I basically I asked for help a lot. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of startup books. I read a lot of tech books. Don't ask me what they are now because I can't remember. I just remember the information. But I think asking for help was the biggest thing I did. And I'm kind of not ashamed about asking for help or kind of going, hey, do you have time to help me? Because people have helped me and hopefully at some point I will be able to pass that on and help other people.
Okay. We've got 3 more questions. And then after that, you can go and finally rest for the evening because it's been a long day for you.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So from James Nutt, we have, once you identified a trend like a cup of coffee example, do you find it's helpful to go back and reevaluate those findings once a significant amount of time has passed?
Yes. So absolutely. This is the one thing that we're adding into the app right now. We track everything by macro data. So I think right now a lot of stuff is micro and it's really focused on one thing, whereas this is about your overarching all of your behaviors and your challenges. And yeah, once you understand something and learn something, then I think you should be able to drill further into that data. So for example, when you first start tracking, you can track 1 to 3 cups of caffeine and then 4 to 5 or whatever, and then there's little different options. If you're only tracking one and you're only ever using one box, then after a certain time you can then drill back down. But your mental fitness is the same as your physical fitness. It is always in flux, and there are so many different things coming in and out of your life that you don't really have control of, but you need to react to. So revisiting things is really important because it either becomes for example, that example I gave you, a staple that's this is true, this is every time this happens, or actually as your life flows and ebbs, that things might suddenly not work for you anymore or become different. So it's good to always be aware and sort of, I guess, take those things into account.
The joy is context is king.
Yes, there you go. I like that.
Just paraphrasing SEO wizards. What helps you stay calm when facing work deadlines and launches? That's from Andy Jones.
Good question, Andy. Thank you so much. So there's a couple of things I do. One thing that is really, really amazing about the fact that £1 million didn't hit my account is nothing is going to feel as stressful as that moment in my life. So now I compare things a lot. So I kind of go, well, that's perspective. How is this, how bad is this going to be? But if I'm getting physically anxious or about something and I'm getting nervous about a deadline, there's a couple of things. So there's a difference between anxiety and stress. Stress is a reaction to something real, like a deadline. Anxiety is a worry about a deadline coming up or an outcome or something that you don't have control over. So when I feel stress and I feel that physical stress, I do some breathing exercises, which are really useful. So it's so simple. You just breathe in for 4, hold your breath for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold your breath for 4. And if you do that 4 times, it actually puts your body in a state of being more relaxed. So I guess it's kind of a little bit like mindfulness, like stuff. So that always physically calms me, and then just making sure that I'm putting things in perspective also gives me a wider picture of how to stay calm. That's helpful.
Well, it is for me. I don't know if it helps Andy, but it helps me. And the last questions for you. Then it's dinner and rest time. Have you considered doing anything with the carefully anonymized, I hope, data, working with data scientists or universities to find trends, patterns, or similar?
Yes, great question. Thank you. So absolutely, we're currently about to do a study with the University of Hong Kong, and we are also doing a study with a PhD student in Nottingham. And we are also working with, we've just signed our first 2 organizations that we're working with. Organizations can supply RKO or license RKO to all of their employees, and we feed back aggregated anonymous data. And as you said, absolutely always anonymous and aggregated. Privacy is one of like the biggest things on my list. Like, I'm very open about my life and my mental fitness and all that stuff, but that's my choice. And I think this information is very sensitive to humans. So we have a really strong protection system where your data is effectively separated from your name and your email address immediately. And you are in many ways, lots of people always say you're not just a number, but in RKO, you're a number. You're just a number. Your data is attached to just a number, so no one can find out who you are, and it keeps you protected, basically, because RKO is for you. The aggregated data is useful, and it's good because it can help people support people better. But essentially, I built this tool for an individual. So yes, it's good for us to go out there, and we are working with scientists and universities and organizations. But my first thought is always that the one person that's using it and making sure it's useful and safe for them.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions. Is there anything else you would love to share with the audience?
No, I've just talked at you guys a lot, so I think that's it from me. But yeah, if you want to check out RKO, then just jump online. And if you want to follow what I'm doing, I post a few videos on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening.
No worries. Right. Well, you have a good rest. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
Right. That's amazing talk from Jana. And next up, we have Charity Majors. I'm actually really looking forward to this because I strongly believe in deploying really, really quickly. I can see her panicked face just before I add her. I'm hoping for a thumbs up so it's safe to add. One moment. Oh, we're good.
Fine.
Hi, Charity. How's it going?
Hi. If you give me I've got a bunch of awesome animated GIFs and I'm inserting them right now. So give me just 1 sec.
If that's the case, do you mind if I do a wordy introduction for you whilst you do that?
Wordy away.
Okay. As everybody else in the planet knows, I really love the sound of my own voice, so I can definitely do this and space out the time and talk a lot more to give you room. So this is Charity Majors, the co-founder and CTO of Honeycomb, a lovely piece of software in the observability space. I am a huge fan, primarily because of their involvement in the open telemetry community and groups. Specifically, the work I've seen around the Java and Go libraries and some of the JavaScript stuff has been fantastic. And as a fan of open telemetry, that makes me very happy. And based upon the title of this talk, I'm also a fan of microservices and fast development. So yeah, I'm very curious about what it's going to be like talking about deploying every 15 minutes, which is a good thing to aim for. But from the tweet that came earlier, Cluster F, describing the process, I'm thinking there's going to be a little bit of a horror story along the way.
Am I live? Can you hear me?
Yeah, live. Are we good?
A horror story? I mean, your lives are the horror story. I bring the solutions. The way you're doing it now is the hard way.
Will you be showing your screen so I can add you up?
I will. 1 second. I'm sorry. Wordy. That was not wordy enough. I'm gonna need like a little bit more padding. I'm sorry.
More padding. Oh Lord. I think
what was the last amazing joke you heard?
The last amazing joke I heard was roughly 12 months ago, when I could see people sad tear. Either that or probably something about my GIF usage in slides. But hey. And I've just spilled water on myself attempting to pad out my own time. Oh, good God. And this is why nobody is meant to leave me in a position of power and being useful. Oh, right. Anyway, just in case people are curious, after the meetup, we are going to have a Kumo space for people to come hang out and talk. So feel free to jump into that and share a virtual pint, whilst I'll be having a real pint of local Birmingham beer from Burning Soul Brewery, because I must be addictive. I have 20 cans of it in my fridge right now. That's probably not a good sign. And that's not including the Guinness ready for the weekend, because rugby. And
okay. I can't figure out how to get MP4s into my slides, so you're just going to have to live with the gifts that I've got. Let's just
gifts
do
are
it.
good.
No, they're gifts. They're MP4s. So, and I'm just like, I'm like a neckbeard. You know, I don't know how modern tools work. This is not my forte.
You're not Richard Stallman. You're good.
I'm not Richard. Yeah, so
that's the definition of a neckbeard.
Richard, so true story. The first conference I ever went to, Usenix in like New Orleans, Richard Stallman was dressed as a monk with the platter on his head, and he followed me around trying to bless my software to purge it of the demons of proprietary software. He did not smell well. He did not smell well at all.
There is no way of coming back from that. That is the best quote and over here I've ever had. I am good night. I officially hanged up my hat. I am quitting my career and doing nothing virtual ever again.
All right, so I need to project my slides or something right at this point.
Yeah, just screen share at the bottom of this StreamYard, and then
it's a really bummer that I can't see you all. You guys are based in London, right?
No, no London here. We're not one of the many. We are an individual collective of people in Birmingham, and nice. I believe currently Ireland as well, based upon Ben. I believe, waiting from Ireland.
I love, like, back in the before times, I went over to the UK like, I don't know, it was like every other month, like 6 or 7 times a year, because it was my favorite. So I accepted every conference invite that I ever got into the UK. If they would pay my way, I was like, I'm there. I've never been scolded for swearing in a talk anywhere in the like UK, Ireland, Scotland. So like, mad love. All right,
I've been scolded plenty, but always after the fact, never during.
How do I put my slides in? I don't see a.
If you go to the StreamYard, at the bottom, you'll see share alongside Cam Leave Studio.
Share. Got it.
And then share screen, pick the window you want to poke, and I will add it. And I will then disappear, and my dulcet tones will go with me.
Okay. Well, I should see the entire screen because I don't think.
It's fine. Slides are hard. Surprisingly, much harder than architecting huge systems.
The hardest problem in computer science is AV, for sure.
And that's why Hannah keeps me around. There we go. And are you all good to go?
I'm good. We good?
Cool. I'll disappear. Enjoy.
Sweet. Thank you. Well, again, this is a one-sided. You're observing me, but I can't observe you. So, I guess that makes me the prisoner in this situation. Continuous delivery. An idea whose time has come 15 years ago, but who's counting? I say that a little bit That's not actually true. Like, yes, the ideas have been around for about 15 years, but I would argue that the actual tool set to make this a reality is more of a, it's been around for about 5 years tops. Nevertheless, why not shame people when you can? If you don't know who I am, my name is Charity. I am co-founder and CTO of Honeycomb. I wrote the Database Reliability Engineering book. If you have this book, and you've probably seen the boring horse on the cover, if you would like me to fix that by sending you a sticker, just DM me on Twitter sometime, and I will send it to you. Liz Fong Jones and I are also, I should put the new one up there. Liz Fong Jones and I are writing a book on observability. It's already in pre-release, so you can go download it. Well, some chapters of it, and it's going to have a wolfie on its cover. It's super cute. It's a little, it's called a ruffed wolf, something like that. Everybody thinks it's a fox. So I'm not sure how we're going to decorate it yet, but rest assured there will be swag. And Honeycomb. Honeycomb is one of those tools that you probably want if you're doing continuous deployment, because we give you like actual observability, not that metrics, logs, and traces bullshit, which, by the way, is a racket, because they're just like, well, we have a metrics product, a logging product, and oh wow, we have a tracing product. And if we sign up customers, we can get them to pay for all three. That's not observability. Right now, I would say that Honeycomb and Lightstep are the only companies out there that offer observability. Sadly, there isn't really anything in the open source space, but that's because there aren't any columnar databases. We might open source ours. We'll see. All right, anyway, enough rambling. Do you do CI/CD? Here's where I'd be like, hands please. And, you know, without the foreshadowing, you know, you walk into a room and of engineers, and most of them are like, yeah, totally, do CI/CD. But do you really? Most people are doing CI, right? Most people have hooked up a Jenkins or a Circle or a something. And if you talk to Jez Humble, he would then launch into a rant about how you're not doing CI. But you know what? I'm nice. I'm going to give it to you. I think if you've got it set up so that, you know, on every commit, it triggers a CI run, you know what? That's good enough for me. I'm not going to get down to the wah, wah, wah. Bless you. It's a good thing to do. The problem is CI is never really the point. The point is getting your shit into production. There are a lot of reasons. And by the way, saying a lot of people here will be going, well, actually, CI/CD is continuous delivery, not continuous deployment. And well, actually, you're an ass. But besides that, continuous delivery is supposed to mean continuous deployment. If you're saying, yes, I've run all my tests, I am ready to deploy at any time, that's bullshit, because all you've done is test the logical execution of your code. As we've all learned, that's like 1% of the journey, right? It's about what happens when your code meets real users in real systems, in real life. That's where all the unknown lives. That's where all the interesting problems live. That's where all of the user experience lives. If you're like, I am ready to deploy, and then I'm like, does that mean you have deployed? Because all of the interesting lessons you're going to learn, you're not going to learn until you have deployed. This ready shit is a total cop-out. And the thing is that, like, a lot of people are like, oh, this sounds hard. No, I'm doing you a favor. I'm front-loading a little bit of pain to make your lives better. Are they calling this shift left these days? I can't tell if that's a buzzword or not. Continuous delivery is what will save your ass. Continuous delivery is what will save your engineering work. Continuous delivery could be what saves your business. Hello, where are my slides? What are we doing? There, okay. In fact, I feel so strongly about this that I would say, if you aren't going to hook your CIs up to production, right? If you aren't going to make it so that you run the tests, you produce an artifact, and then you ship it to production, this is not actually much of an improvement over just running tests on your laptop. It's a bunch of work that you're not reaping the benefits of. Code that isn't in prod is dead code. It doesn't matter. It has no purpose, right? It's like, all right, I'm not gonna say that. If it isn't in prod, what's the point? And the thing is, like, the problem is that, as someone put it, code like pre-production ages like fine milk. It goes sour fast. These systems that we work on, right? They're living systems. They're emergent systems. They're systems that production does not exist in isolation. It exists in a system with the people who write and maintain it and understand it, right? If your production system, right, if they just took all of you away and replaced you with the same number of people who had never touched your system before, how long would it take them to figure everything out? Alert goes off like 10 minutes after they've replaced you with your body doubles. How long does it take those people to fix it? Yeah. First, they got to figure out like how to log in or that anything is wrong, right? It's insane, right? Like this is a socio-technical system that includes you and your software, which means that your code is an emanation of yourself, right? Like you have this original intent in your head. You're like, you know what you want to do. You know the business use case, or you know the performance implications, or you have an intention. You want to move your business forward in this small incremental way, or your tech stack forward. And so you write a diff and you merge it, right? The natural thing is you then immediately want to see, did it do what I wanted it to do? Did it do does something look weird, right? The tighter you get that feedback loop, the more natural it feels, right? Ideally, it should feel like muscle memory. There should be no gap in there for you to go, well, I'm going to run to the bathroom. All my tests are running and it's deploying stuff. I'll be back in an hour and see if we're ready to take a look then, right? When you've broken up this virtuous cycle, you robbed people of that critical feedback loop. But this is just the beginning of the death spiral, right? Because if it doesn't happen within, if it's not automatic, if there are human gates, if it's a variable amount of time, God forbid it should be hours, days, weeks, you've forgotten. Like, you're no longer looking for the consequence of your change. You're like moved on. The death spiral starts as soon as you decouple the virtuous, that virtuous cycle where it is only your diff that's going out within minutes, and you are going to look at it, right? When it goes out quickly, when you can rely on it, then you can hold your engineers accountable and responsible to look at it, right? You make a change, you are doing a professionally irresponsible thing if you then leave. Your job isn't done until you've looked at it, right? Your job isn't done until you've verified in production that it's doing what you wanted to do, right? You can absolutely make that a cultural and like a technical, this is non-negotiable. If you don't agree to this, we don't want you on your team, right? And the thing is that, like, I'm making it sound like you're bringing the hammer down. Engineers fucking want this, right? It makes your job so much easier. Not only that, but it makes your job so much more rewarding. It helps you move so much faster when you know that you can flush something out and move on to the next thing because you validated that it's working. I don't know how you guys work on this stuff when it's like you have to keep like partially loaded into RAM the shit that you worked on a month ago and all of that in between times. That's too much. It's crowding your head out. It's certainly crowding your day out. Like every time you have to swap out what you're working to pick up something you worked on before, I mean, you've lost like real time. I said this, the death spiral starts there at the top, but it's not just about time. It's also about variability. You can't hook into your body's like intrinsic motivations, like symptoms, like the dopamine and the serotonin, if it's not predictable, right? It's okay for it to be predictable, but like 15 minutes, that's probably long. That's probably like my upper bound. Less than 15 minutes, your body will prompt you. Your body will be like, I need to do something because I just did that thing, right? When it's an hour, you're probably going to move on to something. When it's unpredictable, the reward systems can't work. The bigger problem with exceeding 15 minutes, though, is that, or requiring manual triggers of deploys, is that you're pretty much guaranteed at that point to not be shipping one diff of one engineer at a time. This means that, like, this is where it starts to fray really, really rapidly, because if it takes more than an hour, diffs are going to back up. You probably don't have the discipline to like run CI/CD and like just like build up a queue of like artifacts to be deploying constantly. Most people won't do that. So instead, they start bashing these things, and or requiring humans to kick the deployment off. And the ownership that you feel over a deploy that ships exactly what you just merged is huge. The ownership that you feel over a deploy that someone chose to launch at some point that contains yours and an unknown number of other people's, at that point, it's no longer your problem. It's the deployer's problem, or the person who kicked off that deploy, right? This is where this decoupling, like the difference between 15 minutes and an hour, is the need for a professional SRE team. Because when you've got, software engineers who are like accidentally deploying their code and 5 other people's, it breaks. Well, fuck, okay, now it's time to like start looking through all of those diffs, or calling or interrupting all of those people and asking them to help you. Or doing like a git. Sometimes you have to literally do like a git bisect and go and build builds for like each diff at a time and try and isolate which one it was. Pretty much guarantee you've shot the rest of the afternoon, right? If you've got a problem that isn't immediately obvious. And again, like, you're interrupting everybody who had a diff that went out with yours. So like the difference between 15 minutes and 20, 25 minutes, if it means the difference between one diff, one engineer, one deploy, and not that, like that's huge. And in my estimation, based on my experience, you've doubled the number of engineers that you now need to run and maintain your product. Just 15 minutes to an hour. And yes, I'm pulling this out of my ass, but not really. I've worked at a fair number of places, and I have been checking this. I've been asking like everyone who I respect, who I come into contact with over the past month or so, like, does this jive with your experience? And yeah, it's pretty consistent. As soon as you break that virtuous feedback loop of quickly into production, your diff, your responsibility, to some point, even if it's only in hours, you double the number of people that it takes, just because you're now waiting on each other for so much more things. And once you start waiting on each other, your diffs get bigger, right? It takes a lot longer to review, which means that you all start building up these big diffs and having to pick the time you're going to deploy it, and then yeah, it's the death spiral starts there. And the longer it takes, the longer your milk gets to sit and rot before it goes in production, it just gets worse and worse. Pretty soon you're going to need like people who are manning the builds. You're going to need, fucking Kubernetes. You're going to need like more elaborate deployment systems. And you start waiting on each other way more time than you're actually engineering. And I am a little bit less certain about this math, but it still seems to add up. Okay, so if you say that within 15 minutes, you've got this discipline, that's the number, right? Like, that is X. That is the X number of engineers you actually need to build support, maintain this software product. And if it's in hours, you need 2x, right? Well, if it's in days, you need to double it again. And if it's in weeks, double it again. So now you're up to like, what, 6 times as many engineers as you, like, what would you do if you suddenly were given 6 times as many engineering cycles as you have today? I don't know. Let's fix your fucking CI/CD and let's find out together, right? Like the math is pretty brutal, and what this means is putting time into compressing that, taking that seriously as a first-class engineering concern. This is compound interest that you will reap day after day after day. And I'm putting this in very businessy terms, right? Like this is dollars and cents. And I'm trying to do this on purpose because I can't figure out why this has failed for so long. And I think it's because we as engineers don't speak the right terms to our business counterparts. Like we make it sound like this abstract castle in the sky, like logic puzzle that we just want to serve as like to have like our nerd points and to be like the coolest people in the industry. And we need to tell them like, no. This is about winning as a business. This is about keeping our, you get these giant, sprawling, bloated engineering teams, which like, have you ever seen an engineer team and go, oh, you're like 200, how many, 600 engineers to build that? They don't ship in 15 minutes. Like I guarantee you, they've got a very long and leaky software digestive system that's just like spewing noxious gas everywhere. Anyway, I would love to hear any counter arguments to this. Like so. And the thing is, a lot of people start protesting here. Like, well, we can't do continuous delivery. We can't do continuous deployment because blah, blah, blah. And I listen to their reasons. And some people have good reasons. They do. If you work in robotics, get it. I get it. If you work in, mobile, cool. But the thing is that those are not reasons to not take this seriously and live by this, this is software digestive system health. It produces way better quality software, way happier people. Like the people who work with continuous deployment systems basically are spoiled for life. They will never work anywhere else. The amount that you learn so quickly, it leaves your competitors in the dust when you can do this. And if you're working on mobile, like I've heard from enough robotics and mobile and everyone who actually believe in CI/CD to know that it's an excuse. If you can't reach the ideal, it doesn't mean you don't try. It means you look for ways to approximate it and move towards those ways, right? Like maybe you have your development version of the app on an internal CI/CD system that you ship constantly to and everything. And then every couple of weeks, some PM cuts the thing and uploads it to Apple or whatever. That's great. You've got that virtuous feedback loop and you're keeping it every day. Some of the people who I know who are the most fanatic about this stuff are working in IoT and stuff where they can't, deploy constantly. But the thing is that it's not just about making it easy for us. This makes better software, categorically better software. God damn, your best chance of ever finding a bug is if you're instrumenting your code, you write it, you merge, you look at it in production 15 minutes later, through the lens of your instrumentation, that's when you're going to find bugs. That's what you'll find, like 80% of the bugs you will that exist right there. It gets harder and harder and way more expensive to get bugs, to find bugs and fix them the longer they've been out there, right? And I apologize for not getting my wonderful, hilarious animated GIFs in here because they're stellar. If you look at my Twitter feed for the last 24 hours, you'll see a bunch of them. And I apologize for not attaching the the scientific evidence. But again, I'm tweeting all this shit out, right? But like Facebook did a bunch of internal research, and like I'm saying you double the engineering resources. They found it went up exponentially. That it was exponentially more It became exponentially more expensive and time consuming to find bugs the longer after, literally from the moment you wrote it. Like, the cheapest way to find bugs is in your IDE, right? Second cheapest way is, CI/CD, the CI. Third cheapest way, in production, right away. Well, you've got that original intent right smack in your head. You know exactly what you just did. You know exactly what gremlins to go look for. Go look at it there. You'll find it. You'll fix it. Your users will never even notice, right? It's the bugs that you wrote 2 years ago that your team has to find. Those are the fucking expensive ones. And if you're writing code and shipping it 2 months later, like, it's almost like you've replaced the team. It's not quite as bad, but it's like, what did I do 2 months ago? I don't fucking know. And if you're like, this sounds great, but this sounds like it's really for like the elite Silicon Valley team, your Googles, your Facebooks, your Netflix, your whatnots, fuck you, first of all. People who work at Google and Facebook, they're not smarter than your team. Like, some of the smartest engineers I have ever known are working at like FedEx in North Carolina. They keep the lights on, and that is hard shit. And this is why, because the way you're doing things now is the hard way. The way Facebook and Google and Netflix are doing it is the easy way. And they've invested a lot of money into that. They've invested enough money into this shit that they can take interns, put them in front of their repo, and be like, go to town. Right? This is the way. This is the way to write good software. And like, I'm talking about cost and everything, but like, this is the way to live your life too. Wrestling with the slog, the Dilberty, like, software has this reputation for just being like, well, this is just how software is. It's just a rite of passage. It's just got to be excruciatingly painful most of the time. It does not. It actually fucking doesn't, and that makes me really angry now that I've experienced the opposite. You can live in most of your days, most of the time, in the state of flow, in the state of creative exploration, learning new things, testing your boundaries, diving deep into puzzles, not dealing with like fucking software that's been like half digested, and you're in there trying to like excavate this. And yeah, make a very gross, like, fecal analogy on purpose. It's not fun. It's fucking awful. It doesn't have to be like that. And like, the thing is that, like, I've been talking about this for like since the start of the year, and this is not like an act of altruism on my part. I'll straight up tell you it's because I think Honeycomb is going to be successful to the extent that we can help people get better at shipping software over the next 10 years. Like, the people who are stuck in, text-based unstructured logs and who can't instrument their code and who are, I can't help them. In fact, I have a really hard time helping teams who have a month-long delivery cycle. If you can't even, if you can't add a library and go look at what happened, if you have like 2 months, like, what can I do with that? And like, for ages, people were just telling us like, well, this means you're going to have to like build an on-prem version. You're going to have to like munch text log, all shit. And I fundamentally reject that. It's too depressing. I don't want to fix the shitty old problems that we all know how to fix when it's easier, faster, better, funner, and more rewarding to work on the problems of the future. And the thing is, like, if engineers know this, find me 10 engineers who are not like, I would love to work on a system with continuous deployment. Honestly, that'd be fucking great. Engineers know this. You know who doesn't? CTOs. Apparently. I do consider this to be like the generational failure of our technical managerial class of the past decade. They could have been helping us get here quickly. They could have been running cover for us with the execs, because I get that it's a bit of a hard sell if you put it this way. You're like, so guys, we're gonna just ship everything out immediately from now on. yeah, it's going to be super breaky and like way less reliable for a while. I don't know how long, but like it's going to make the engineers super happy, right? Just trust me on this. Like it's great. All the cool kids are doing it. They're going to like, fuck you. What? Doesn't make any sense. So you're telling me that we're going to get more problems, and in the meantime, like you're taking cycles away from product development to work on this like, you know, thing that's just going to hurt us. You know, I get why this could be a scary sell when you put it that way. And maybe CTOs have just been in the like executive suite for too long. They just got cognitive capture and they've forgotten what it's like to be on the ground. But we're the fucking practitioners. We write this shit. We own this shit. Stop ceding your moral authority to the management and let's make this happen. If we don't build it, it doesn't exist, right? We do the work. We have the power. Take it back. You know, and if your job is not interested, if you try to make the case to them in terms of dollars and cents and headcount, right? Use some of the arguments about what would you do with twice as many engineering cycles? You know, like let's do this together. If they won't let you, go rogue. Start working on bringing down the length of your test suites and making it tractable. And if all else fails, here's the thing. Yes, it's difficult. It's not hard. It's just basic engineering work to like take a long software digestive system and, you know, reduce it. It's more difficult politically to get all the gatekeepers and people want to sign off and check off to like convince them that they're actually hurting the system and that they're not that important and they won't be as good as an automated check. That's the hard part. But you know what's not hard? Doing this with every new project that gets spun up from scratch, right? Anytime you add a repo, add a service, whatever, on day one, you write hello world, you get your CI/CD, shipping it and deploying it to production, right? Just don't write any more code until you've got it deploying to production. And then stay that way. It is easier, it is faster. It will create a hunger on the part of your entire team to make everything feel that blissful and beautiful and wonderful. Now, I just realized that I like skipped over, you know, some necessary parts about how decoupling releases and deployments. You know, you do want to have feature flags. You don't literally want to be like, I wrote this thing, voila, everyone gets to see it, right? Like, this actually doesn't work for most people for very good reasons. The point is to be getting it into production, and what this will force you to do, you get it into production. There's this massive shift going on. It's so, what's my timeline? Okay, and it's like it is industry wide. It started about 5 years ago, shifting from focusing so much of our energy onto pre-production, right? All the staging environments, all the dev environments, all of the, you know, all this elaborate shit, to getting like the center of gravity is coming to production, right? Getting to production, and then, you know, this will force you to up-level yourselves on retooling for production, which is a very good thing. It will force you to involve things like feature flags. It'll force you to investigate observability. It will force you to invest in progressive deployments. It will force you to, you know, do all of these modern best practices that involve finer controls, better visibility, more ability to like go, what is that user experiencing right now, right? The last generation monitoring tools were about, is my system healthy, right? Observability is about, what is every single user's experience like? And it's not okay for it to be an aggregate. It's not okay to be like, cool, we've got 99.95% up, you know, we're hitting our SLOs. It's not okay if like everyone whose last name starts with XYZ or whatever, their entire shard is offline, right? You can see how like when we had only these blunt instruments, monitoring was enough, right? You can see how, you know, aggregate graphs, Prometheus was enough. You can see how slow deployments were enough. But once you've gotten hooked on, you know, the immediacy of writing your code, watching it immediately, does it look good, right? Is it working as intended? Is it doing what you wanted it to do? And does anything else look weird? You'll never go back. So how are we going to do better in 2021? That's what I would like to leave you with. Oh, and this graph, I should have put it back up there. This was supposed to be like right before the CTO's like, won't save you thing. Are you too busy to improve? This is what You're doing it the hard way now. I'm sorry to tell you, it can be much easier. All right, I think I'm done now. Yeah.
Holy cow! That's a lot. Like that, a lot. Like a lot. And you have a lot of questions. You ready for this?
Oh, good. Hell yeah.
I'm sorry, Ben. You may have to wait. Our final talker is going to be Ben FOXALL, and there's a few questions.
Good. Should I start scrolling and just like answer?
I will pop them on screen. We'll start going through them if that's okay.
All right, great. That sounds great.
Because otherwise, when do I get to talk?
Do you get a lot of people?
Pardon?
No, go ahead. I was just like looking at it. Yeah.
I miss being a DevRel. I don't get to talk as much.
Go for it.
Do you get a lot of pushback from people when explaining this approach?
It depends on their incentives. It depends where they live in the ecosystem. If I'm talking to software engineers who don't have a vested stake in the way things are, oh God, no. People are just like, oh my God, I wish that was possible. You know, some people, you know, and the thing is that like I'm saying this very kind of brutishly here, like very bluntly. We do have to be like sensitive to people. It's not nice to be like, you are gumming up the cogs of my software, right? Like they're just trying to do their jobs. They're doing their best. We need to like bring everyone, like Adam Jacobs is so much better at this than I am, just being like hug ups, you know, everyone's part of this. But honestly, like I get pushback from people who have vested interest in the way things are, and I get pushback from people who are scared. But that's about it. I mean, everybody wants to live in this world, right? They just aren't sure if they belong there or not.
It's like the weirdest intro to a Star Wars TV series. Well, sorry, Star Trek TV series ever.
They're sure if they're good enough, you know, which is why both, you know, two things are possible. It is way easier to do things this way than the way you're doing things now. It's just like no comparison. And also, yeah, you are good enough. Like, absolutely. If you can learn to write fucking software, like this makes it easier. You know what's really hard is trying to like write software, this abstract, massive thing, and keep it all in your head and reason about it and find the problems. That's hard. You know what's easy? Looking at it.
Yeah, I'm so glad I haven't been a production engineer for a while. So many hard questions. Here we go. So from Bash J, it's great to hear you, Charity Live. Thanks Fusion for arranging this. Sounds good, but we cannot take the risk.
So
which
the
good
Bible,
case?
The Bible for you guys is Accelerate. Jez Humble, Nicole Forsgren, Gene Kim wrote a whole fucking book where they did the research, they talked to the companies, they massed the case studies. This was literally the DevOps Research Org. And we all owe them this amazing debt of gratitude, because otherwise it would just be like my say-so and a bunch of anecdotes. Anecdotes, you know, can be compelling and you should use them when possible. But the point is that the way you're doing it now is the risky way. You're not finding things early enough in production because you've lost that context about what you're trying to do. You can never get it back, right? This moment in time where you know it's gone. You need to capture that and use it while you still have it, right? Like, and yeah, there's data that bears this out. And the thing is that I get that our wetware, this is not instinctive to us, because we as a species, when we get scared, we freeze. We slow down, right? When we lose our balance, we're like, slow down. But that is not the physics of software. The physics of software says that speed is safety, that small, regular, consistent changes is the safest way to go. And when you slow down your software pipeline, that's risk.
Yeah.
And we have a real educate, like we cannot abdicate the education, right? Like we as engineers, we have to be the ambassadors for this. If we want to live in this new world, you can't wait for someone else to save you. Read Accelerate, You know, start practicing your arguments, start looking for allies who you can influence in your organization. Take this on as a personal challenge. I believe in us. Like, we have the power. We know what we need, and they want what we have. So we just have to like help everyone get there together.
I managed to sneak in a question of my own. Any advice for black box environments, for those places where they never give you any goddamn information back after you've actually sent shit into the wild?
I mean, why would you work at one of those places? Give me an example.
Banking.
Oh, I get it. Or like they never give you anything back once you got it into the wild. Okay. So or like IoT stuff where you don't get anything back from the devices, right? Well, in those cases, like I think that this sort of thing is way more important than ever, because you know you've got to for banks there it's like I have a different answer for banks than for IoT. Like it's like, yeah, you need this more than ever. Build yourself some like environment where you can at least use it yourselves, or have some, you know, some segment of people who will be using it, you know, continuously. But like, and it's unfortunate because like, if you could see the statistics for the devices you probably have, like they're shit, right? This is why software has such a bad name in you know, consumer tech. And for banks, so like I'm working on a talk right now for Amex this month because they think that they can't do it because of regulations, and they're wrong. They're actually wrong. And you look at plenty of banks out there, like, you know, Capital One, who have realized this. That's why they're the best in the industry. That's why they recruit the best engineers. This is, you kind of gotta like keep trying all the angles to find the one that clicks with your organization. But like, if you don't think you can recruit the best engineers or retain them, probably because you have shit, like because you're like stopping them from doing their jobs. And a lot of security teams are scared, right? And the easiest thing to say is no. But there are no regulations in this country that keep you from doing CI/CD. There are no regulations. I bet you anything. I bet you that your black box is for no good reason. And you know, you should probably get some insight into it, because your customers are feeling the pain, right? If you can't feel the pain first before your customers do, it's a bad system.
Also, big up to Capital One in Nottingham, hiring all the great staff as students. Amazing engineers they hire young and grow them, which is fantastic.
That is awesome. I love to see that. I'm constantly so mad at Netflix because so much of what they do is amazing. I love that whenever Netflix, like I have my issues with some of Netflix's values, but I love that you talk to anyone from Netflix all the time, they come up. Like they know what their values are, they live them. I just fucking hate that they have this thing where they will only hire the senior ones. I'm like, you're not actually doing your part as part of the ecosystem, and it's hurting you in ways that you don't know about. Like, you're not being a good corporate citizen, in my opinion.
Yeah, principle of a good citizen is a strong principle. We've got 3 more questions if you're okay with that.
Sure. I have 8 more minutes.
Okay, let's do 3 questions, 8 more minutes. So we have Ben Paddocks. Many people continue to deploy to staging but not production. Could better use of feature flags in production reduce the need for staging environments?
Ding. You have got it. Absolutely.
Also, solid observability.
Solid observability.
Okay, so pads.
Observability and feature flags really go hand in hand, because, you know, if all you've got is like the Prometheus style or Datadog style monitoring, and you're using feature flags, that's cool. But you can't, like, they don't support high cardinality, so you can't be like, show me only the requests that are going for this flag at this time, you know? So you know, I'm going to put a plug here because try Honeycomb. We have a really generous free tier. You can try it for free. Also, if you're looking at reducing, you know, your build time so you can get this shit out faster, we've written a bunch of stuff about applying, you know, tracing to CI/CD. You can do build events. You can just be like, you can just add it. It takes like 30 minutes. Free tier. Don't have to spend anything. And suddenly you can see where all your time is going. You just start knocking them off one by one. It's the easiest fucking thing. And it is so satisfying. It's just like, ah. Sorry.
Running tracing on integration environments.
Yeah, it's anything that you can visualize. Anything you can visualize over time, use with traces.
Okay. Well, we have another question from James Nutt. To what extent are these ideas compatible with
not.
orgs and manual QA
They
processes?
are not. Any manual release gate is a problem. And this is a big, and what I love though is that the testing community has really come around to this. Like if your QA team has not come around to this, send them to one of the test communities conferences when we can do those again. Because the testing community is really like fucking Abby Banger out there. Like she's one of my idols. She talks about this a lot. And she's a really great advocate for like using observability in production with feature flags. And because the thing is, when you're looking at this shit in your staging environment, you're not looking at reality. Like you're not going to catch anything interesting until it's in production.
The weird shit only happens when real people mess with your stuff.
It's or concurrency, or just like, far-flung chaotic distributed systems, or client weirdnesses, like your canned staging environments are dead. They're dead environments. Nothing interesting there.
Event-driven systems. Lovely to see. And the last question. I hope you're ready for it. So this is from Alex Wilson. Definitely a subscriber to this mindset, but I work in media. I am curious about how you start to achieve the same benefits when working with a product in a regulated market.
Again, like the principles don't change, and there are teams out there that know this and are crushing it. They are the ones that are winning over their competitors because they've adopted this. It does requires you to have a higher caliber of security people, because instead of just cargo culting and saying no to everything, they actually have to think through what the regulations were intended to achieve. The regulators actually aren't trying to make us worse at software, I promise you. And mostly you can think of them as accounting firms, right? They want to help you get to where you want to go. No, seriously, the regulators, they're accountants. This is the SOX compliance people and stuff. They're all accountants, right? And it's just like speaking a slightly different language. And good security people know this, and they'll work with the regulators. So it's the no surprises principle, right? By and large, the regulated environments are not saying, developers can't deploy to production or anything. It says what they're about is creating a ledger, right? So that if something does go wrong, you could go back and see what happened. So, I'm glad you asked. This is this is my next big thing that I have to dive into and do some research and come up with some slides and shit, because so many people who work in these regulated environments have been telling me this, but I feel like there's a conduit that's missing, so I'm going to try and be that conduit and explain how it works. We'll see.
So just space for the reality of the solution.
Yeah, watch this space.
Nice.
All right, I gotta go. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much, Charity. Have a wonderful morning or afternoon now, and see you later.
You too. Bye.
There we go. Thank you, Charity, once again. Next up is going to be Ben FOXALL. I remember Ben for a long time ago. He's the only person I'm going to be inviting on stage who shot me in the face with a Nerf gun. So that's going to be really awkward saying hi to somebody who's literally pulled a barrel on me. So, hi, Ben. How's it going?
I am good, and I am sorry about that. It's
like, you barely remember that.
Yeah. No, there's like I remember there being a lot of Nerf gun-esque things happening in the past, but yeah.
Banter hack.
That was it. Yeah, banter hack.
Well, I can't remember if it was you or Jack, but one of you shot me in the face.
Do you know what? I'm not sure either, so I think we can just safely assume it's Jack.
It's always the last guy.
Exactly.
So yes, Ben, would you like me to introduce you, or shall you introduce yourself?
I can introduce myself. I've got a slide with a picture of the place I work at. Or just now, or what are you talking about?
I was just meaning, do you want a wordy bit, or should you just crack on?
I guess I can crack on.
Right, now let's gonna add Ben. We're gonna now find out if oh no, there is not a double Ben.
Wait, did that work?
That it's kind of worked. So right, I'm going to remove myself, and you're going to be side by side. You're going to have the smallest slides.
Wait, there is actually another option. Wait, oh, I can hear myself. This is bad.
What have I done? How about that? That better? Say something. Oh God!
Sorry, I muted on both. Could you actually just do the screen share one? Will that work?
There we go. Can you still hear me, Ben?
I can still hear you.
Right. Do we get to see your lovely bearded face or not?
1 sec.
Technology, everybody, when we're doing it in production, because we're skipping all observability.
Sorry, I had you muted there for a sec. Can you?
We are literally just. We can all hear you. At least I can.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, I've got this.
Yay! We are now ignoring the complete previous talk. We're doing this in production.
Yeah, totally. I've got. So we were chatting before. I've been having challenges with the screen share in this in StreamYard. So I've kind of come up with some kind of cunning solution where this is actually my webcam through OBS. I can even do this kind of thing. Hello.
That's true.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, but I'm not going to do that.
But in this case, I'm going to disappear and let you do your thing.
Cool. Wicked. That's cool. Bye. So, hello. And yeah, this is, it's really cool to be here. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of say thanks to Mike. Sorry, I could have said that while you were here. But yeah, thanks a lot. And to Hannah as well for kind of organizing this. And yeah, it's really, we've been chatting quite a lot before this, and there's like so much organization goes into these things. So props to you. Good job. Also, the other two talks here were amazing, right? I really loved hearing about Archeo and like Jana's kind of path to creating that. And in Charity as well, it was just like, I was like nodding along enthusiastic at one point. I like air fist the air kind of thing. And yeah, it was just like super cool. I really, really dig what you're doing. So yeah, this is my intro slide. I work at a company that you can't see the name of, so I'm going to move myself down here. I work for OXBOTICA. So we create software for self-driving vehicles. This is one of our vehicles down here. And yeah, we do this. We've got this tagline of universal autonomy. And what that means is our software can run in like lots of different vehicles and situations. So this was a fleet of vehicles running around busy streets in London a couple of years back, all like fully autonomous. And then that exact same software a few days later is running in a completely different type of car with different sensors. And instead of avoiding buses and bikes, it's avoiding sheep and like these posts and pylons and stuff like that. In that, I work on the web team. So there's a few of us, and so doing autonomy, you've got all this kind of infrastructure for handling all the data that you are kind of collecting from the cars, and like so we've got like a bunch of tools. These are screenshots, a few of them that show where stuff is, and shows kind of like data we're collected and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna sort out some stuff here. Yeah, so that's what I do. If you want, like we're hiring at the moment, so if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you can go over to our careers page, look at a picture of me. Wait, which direction? That way, with more facial hair. So I've just been traveling at the time, and yeah, you can scroll down, and we have some jobs listed. We're specifically on my team. We're looking for web developer front ends. So yeah, that is cool. So that was work stuff, but I'm going to talk about something kind of different today. But I thought I'd just say where I work and things. And what I'm going to talk about today is gRPC and peer-to-peer communication. So this sounds quite dry, but we're actually kind of going to go through from kind of history of the web platform to protocols to, I don't know, like, I guess, ways of interacting with technology and stuff. So it should kind of stay with me. It's going to be fun. And yeah, the format that I'm kind of, I need to sort this out. 1 sec. I can do this. Yeah. Yeah, that works. Yeah, I don't need no StreamYard stuff. This is all good. Cool. Yeah. So what I'm going to talk about today is the structure that I'm going to give this is talk about changing the way that we build the web. And the kind of the format here is I'm going to go through some things. We're going to talk about what a thing that we do when we're building stuff for like web servers and stuff. And then we're going to explore why we do that, like where it kind of came from, what the origins of it. And then we're going to look at some alternatives. And we're just basically going to repeat this process and then end up with something kind of cool and different by the end. Right. I should say just before I start, like this, I'm really aware I don't really like giving talks where I'm just like, you should use this tech and that's it. You know, like it's your choice. I'm just going to show you some stuff you might find it interesting or useful to know about. But whatever you're doing is cool that you're doing it. So the first thing I was going to say is, so we're going to go through, I think 1 to 6. And one of the things that we do as developers and as people building APIs, we quite often use JSON for data, right? Like, so we use that as a format. So I'd like to just like give an example of this. So imagine we've got a web server here, and that web server has some way of telling what the weather is outside. So maybe it's connected to a satellite, or maybe it has a window that it can look out of. Whatever. This computer knows what the weather's like outside. So how do we talk to it? We can send it an HTTP request which says, give me the weather at this location. And then it sends back this content here, which is JSON, right? Like, so it sends back that the place, the whether or not it's windy, what the temperature is like outside. And the term JSON was coined in 2001 by Douglas Crockford and his team, and it's been around for quite a while. This is what it looks like. So you got some curly braces for objects with keys. Strings are quoted, keys are quoted, true and false work, numbers, you can just type numbers. And yeah, it's kind of like, it's pretty readable. The cool thing about this is, as someone who works with the web, is that this is JavaScript object notation. So basically you can take that text, stick it in your JavaScript file, and you've got a program. So you can kind of you can just use it like that. What's kind of nice about this is that, so JSON was coined in 2001, but if it's just JavaScript, you could kind of use it right the way back to the first browser that supported JavaScript, which was Navigator 2.02, which was in 1995 it came out. So what I quite like about this is that it was basically able to be used. It was like refined by this idea. It was like just a kind of concept around how we can think of passing stuff around in JavaScript. So kind of cool. I just saw someone say that logo takes you back, and yes, it does, doesn't it? It's pretty cool. Yeah, and nowadays JSON is baked into the web platform, right? Like, so we can decode a JSON object, and it's like hyper efficient, and it's just very kind of like natively supported by the web platform. So it's cool. But today we're thinking about alternatives. So one of the alternatives that is out there is something called protocol buffers, right? So if a couple of weeks ago I was at Brum.js, which was great fun. I really enjoyed hanging out there. And I talked about decoding network packets from a LiDAR unit. And we looked at this diagram of that packet data, and we looked at how we could decode it. So basically, protocol buffers are a way of our tooling for creating your own binary formats. So it allows you to kind of have that flexibility, that performance of dealing with binary data, but with some tooling that isn't so painful. The way this works is you create an object. Here we created a weather object with a string name, whether or not it's cloudy outside. I hope that no one here works in the Met Office or anything like that, because this is probably going to make you like cry a little bit. But yeah, so we can basically set these keys up, and then we've assigned a structure for our data. Once we've got that, we can run this proto-C, which is proto compiler, and that takes our file and spits it out for us to. It spits out JavaScript files here, which will be stubs for generating those messages. So we've taken our weather message, and now we have a weather object, and that object we can initialize, set properties on, call these functions, and then once we've got it how we want it, we can call this serialized binary, and that will spit out a buffer of that particular format which that message specifies. So yeah, we can use this to kind of as a generator, and also we can use this to deserialize the binary the other direction. What is cool about this is if you compare the output with JSON, we've got like all this text, like the key names, all the spaces, colons, all that. Whereas protocol buffer will be just like the raw data, and the true won't be 4 letters long or anything like that. So it's quite a lot more succinct and efficient and feels cool. I really dig protocol buffers. They're really cool. I really like how it's kind of harder and sometimes impossible to make mistakes. It's really kind of small and efficient on the wire, so you can kind of send quite complex objects, serialize them up, and it won't take up that much space in quite a lot of situations. And then you've got this type safety. Like, so when I look at an object that I've got from a protocol buffer, I know which keys it has, and I know which keys have Boolean values attached to them, which, yeah, is quite nice. And what's even cool is that you have type safety across languages, right? Like, so if I've created this object with these keys, you can read in that object in Python, and you have those same guarantees of the structure of that object, which is kind of nice. So the mistakes, if you spelled temperature wrong in JSON, then you're cool, it's JSON. No one minds. Whereas if you do this in one of these stubs, it will ideally do a compile time run error, or it might do a runtime error. So you kind of get this structure for free, which is kind of nice. The way this data is stored, like, so we got a blob of data, and you might notice these numbers in our proto file, and those numbers represent tags within that data. And so that's how we can avoid sending whether or not it's a string and a place name. So this gives us an index into that buffered data. Efficiency is good. So it makes me feel uncomfortable that we're sending numbers as a string of characters. Like, that feels a bit weird. Whereas we have better number encodings in protocol buffers, and I've got an example here if anyone's interested. As I said, true, false. They're a bit. They shouldn't be like 4 and 5 characters. And a nice thing as well that you don't have in JSON is you've got these options for sending nested other objects, and also just raw bytes if you want to. So sometimes you have to hack around this if you're wanting to use straight JSON. And there's heaps more other things as well that are cool. The portability thing is badass. Like, basically you can run stubs for all these different languages and write your own generators, and you'll be able to have this kind of cross-language compatibility layer thing. Right, okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some quick demos. npm run demo. Demo 1. I have multiple demos. Cool, so that's just, should open up here. Right, okay, so what we're going to do is we've got that weather object that I showed you before, and I can type in, actually I can change the temperature, and you can see down the bottom we've got this content here that is updating as I change this key. We can add more of those. If it's 0, it doesn't count at all. True, false, and I'm going to say Dublin, which is where I'm at. it is not cloudy. It's actually hailing out here. It's probably a bit colder, wind direction, and that binary object, I am going to just, I think I've got something here which will be good. I've got an image here. So basically that has been all encoded into that protocol buffer, like buffer object. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. And then when we decode it, we can just pull that straight out. So this is that raw image here and all the kind of properties here. The direction has been translated into emoji, turned around, kind of cool. So yeah, that's kind of how the portability works. And what's nice is like this could be across different languages as well. Like I just happened to pass it to JavaScript on the same page. Cool. So protocol buffers. I hope you're a fan. I am. So number two, a thing that we do is we used REST for interfaces, right? Like so, when we requested that data, we sent this URL here, and we got that data back. This whole kind of like thing here is uses kind of like REST principles. So you may have heard of REST. It's called it stands for representational state transfer, and this was coined around this was defined around the year 2000, right? So this is part of what it comes down to is you've got these HTTP verbs, so get, post, and then these resource identifiers, which basically model a remote structure of data. So this, you've got a set of locations, weather, and reactions to that weather, if you care. Again, I hope no one from the Met Office is listening. Actually, I hope you are listening. I hope this can help. So yeah, and yeah, this is all about yeah, modeling that data. So REST it can use HTTP, right? Like so, and it's just a formalism on top of that. And so, in that same kind of way of JavaScript and JSON, REST and HTTP has a 9-year gap between them. HTTP was 1991, and so yeah, but it's still the first ever web browser could speak kind of REST. You know, like if you wanted to. So I'm just gonna grab a drink. Yeah, and it's yeah, really baked into the web platform. Like web browsers can speak it. But today, looking at alternatives, an alternative to this is gRPC, right? So this is basically what it looks like. So it's a way of defining an interface with another service. So in that same way as before we defined a message, here we're defining a service that talks to another machine. And here, what's nice is we get all this benefit of generating stubs and all that kind of thing. So here we're able to use a particular plugin that generates it in a particular format, and that will spit out code which speaks in this interface, which is super nice. There is a bit of a kind of a philosophical, no, not philosophical, an architectural difference between the two, and between REST and services and gRPC, which is that REST is kind of resource oriented. So it's based around this idea that you have a structure of data and you on a remote machine, and you want to kind of pull that content across. Whereas services, a service oriented architecture is like you just basically asking something questions, and it might have data, but it doesn't really have that same kind of that state attached to it. Both run over HTTP, but instead of having this kind of hierarchical structure, you just have services. I dig gRPC as well. Mistake-free stuff that you get with protocol buffers, and that works across a network connection, which is brilliant. So when you kind of ask for some content and it comes back from another machine, you still have guarantees about what structure that content is in, and it brings you type safety between languages. So not only are you able to transfer objects, but you're able to call code on different machines and different languages. So that's really powerful. It's really cool for, it's used quite often in microservice architectures. And yeah, but it's also, yes, what I was gonna say is like, there's a slight problem for front-end developers. Like, so I deal with quite a lot of like browser JavaScript stuff, and gRPC would be perfect, other than it doesn't work. So just now, like, because the way gRPC is architected, it can't physically be supported in browsers, and that's because it relies on HTTP2, and you need to have like low-level support for frames and streaming to make use of it. So that sucks. But there are options. So you got like web gRPC, which is, or maybe gRPC web, which is basically a kind of sub protocol which allows you to access it from a browser natively, and yeah, gives you that. If you want to do this, there's a gRPC web proxy, which it kind of sits in front of a server, or stuff like Envoy, which is more kind of like mesh networking, magic, cool stuff. Right. Okay, we have got quite a few demos. So we're going to stop that one, and we're going to do demo 2. And also, I'm going to run demo 2.back. Right, okay, so we've got a front end here like before, but now we've also got a back end, which is running on this machine here. So now, did that just break? No, it's fine. So now, when I reload this page, we've got this back end window here is exposing a gRPC service on my machine, and you can see there's also a proxy running there, and I can call the messages in this. So if I do hello, that is actually kind of calling through to this process here, and that's doing the kind of conversion. That's echoing it back and adding some emojis and stuff like that, which is handy. With gRPC, we've also got streaming options, which I didn't go into before. So here I'm streaming the CPU usage on this host machine, and yeah, so we can kind of get this live data feed from that, and the battery, which is a bit concerning because my laptop's actually currently plugged in. So I don't know, I guess, yeah. Screenshot, so this is to show accessing binary binary content. So you can see this is my kind of weird streaming setup over here. If I take a screenshot of that, you'll be able to see it. Even weirder. So yeah, we're able to kind of access raw stuff from the machine. And here I'm setting this kind of system preferences, which change all the color schemes. So just to kind of show what kind of options there are with this stuff. So yeah, this is all kind of exposed through a gRPC service, and then proxied through a gRPC proxy, and then it used in a front end. And then you get all this kind of cool stuff with that, of like not having to write any interface code and all that kind of stuff, and really efficient over the wire. Cool. So the third thing I was going to talk about, because I need to kind of hurry up a little bit, is this thing that we do, which is to make browsers read data from servers. So ooh, I forgot to do a slide there. Oh, that was supposed to be the, yeah. So basically we've got a server with some content on it. And yeah, what we do is we tend to imagine this is a really great slide. Do that. So we've got content on our web server, and then we request that to a browser. So the kind of content lives at the server. And this has always been the case. So this is the very first web page, and that was the content for this lived on a server. Which is cool, but and this was even the case when you want to transfer content between browsers. So here we've got something on this browser, but we want it to be over here. So what we do is we put up a server connection, upload it here, and download it to the other side. An alternative to this is to use WebRTC. So WebRTC allows us to kind of create this peer-to-peer connection. And the way we do this, I'm just going to skim over this really quickly. But if you want to ask me questions, I can totally answer them. You've got these two servers. You've got these two browser windows. You've got a server in between them. That's a signaling server, and then these browsers talk to other external servers, and those servers say, "Yo, this is how to connect to me." And then from that, you can establish a direct peer-to-peer connection, and then disconnect those other things, which is cool. And so the data that you get is like, so this is kind of for audio media streams. We're using it just now for this call. But you also get data channels, which are not media-based and just raw kind of like WebSocket-y kind of things. So yeah, I really dig these. They feel like a WebSocket. They've got appropriate latency and bandwidth, so if devices are next to each other, they won't bounce through a remote server somewhere, which seems really natural. And what I really like is people build really cool stuff with this. Like, so it's like, yeah, like lots of fun. Right, okay, so this is where everything kind of comes together, which is the things I've talked about so far: protocol buffers, gRPC, and WebRTC. You can kind of roughly think of these as serialization, interface, and a transport. And why I've kind of explored this direction is that these can be combined together in a really kind of like weird and interesting way. So what we can do is we can start with our gRPC, with our WebRTC connection between these two browser windows. We can call one of them a server, call one of them a client. We can generate our stubs from using the gRPC Proto-C tool, and then these are able to connect to each other over type-safe network connection that's peer-to-peer, which is really, really fun. And what's nice is with this, you're not really limited in how many you connect to. So you can kind of have lots of browser windows that talk to each other. And what I find really cool about this is basically what we've done is we've taken a browser window and we've implemented a server process inside it. So we're able to kind of serve content from that browser window to other places. Cool. Right. Okay. So we're going to have a really hyper quick demo of this one because we've got a lot more to get through. So what we've got here is this is a web page, and this is using and then I've got this link here, which I'm gonna copy and launch a new window. So that's a signaling thing here. So we've got that exact same service, but instead of being running in the browser window, in the host process, it is running in this browser window here. So if I do echo, I say hello, and now I've got these emoji in between. But what's cool is that this is actually evaluating in this other page. So if I say hello world, then you can see that it's actually getting called here, which is super nice. We don't have system info in this because we don't have access to the CPUs. So I've just done this kind of random wavy thing. But what's quite nice about that is if I bring in Firefox, say, I can synchronize these together, and we can actually keep these devices in sync without any browser hardware anywhere. Just all kind of through peer-to-peer connections. Screenshots. So here I can capture a screenshot using my camera. Hello. And we can see we've actually kind of transferred a kind of static image between two browsers. So like that's Chrome into Firefox. We've got all these pictures here, which is kind of nice, I guess. And color scheme, it's a bit boring. We can change the CSS properties of that host window, but it's just like the main thing is that we're changing a web browser into a server, which there's a lot of kind of fun things we can do with that. Cool. So I've been playing around with this a little bit, and I've got a demo that we can kind of share at home as well, which is exciting. And it's gonna, so this is prpc.me, and so basically if you go here, it gives you instructions of how to host your own server. So I can say host Fusion. So what I've done is I've created a web server here. This WebSocket thing is connected to a backend server. And then in another window, I'm going to open this. And you can see this is initially connected to backend, some EC2 instance. Then it initiates a peer connection. Then it disconnects from the backend. So this window is kind of like offline. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this. There's already 3 people on it, which is cool. And I'm going to put that in the YouTube chat. Open that in a window, whatever. The more the merrier would be cool. And we should be able to see you appear here. So we've got 4 people here. 5. Excellent. So yeah, what we can do is these are different kind of like sub app things. This first one just lets you kind of send simple messages. It lets you set your emoji. So I can say I want to be a star. So each person has their own kind of like ID here. I'm this GWF. SD, yeah, I don't know, that person. And what's weird here is that you're going to see a 10-second latency between what you're what you're posting because the YouTube channel, and I was gonna do a hack to get around that, but I haven't done it. So yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, we can see that seems to start have started working. I'll open it again just so we get more people. Cool, right? So actually, I'll leave it like that. Okay, cool. Yeah, that looks like it's working all right. We got a skateboarder. We got some other stuff here. Cool. Right. Okay. So carrying on here, emoji. That's what we've just talked about. What's nice about this is that so the code works exactly the same. You've got this is a calculator service, and what you do is you write front end components. So these are React. As someone said, use React. That's the front end way. It's not, but yeah, so basically what you do is you write components as if it's a server process, and as if it's a front client, which is super natural. Like it actually, I've been doing this a bit, and it works really well. So you do that, and then you just hook it together, which is nice. And what's cool is like when you think about what you're not doing here. So basically, we're not implementing any interfaces, all that kind of stuff. We're not having to make any type assumptions. If you've done any WebSocket stuff, you know what I'm talking about. We can do this. I can show you what the weather is like in Dublin. So if you make a request to the server, you should see it will. You can check the weather and you can get this content. So we've implemented what feels like a server, but doesn't have any kind of back-end stuff. Cool. Right. Okay. So right now we're all kind of up to speed. The last thing I was not the last, but we're going to talk about data sources. So our assumption or the way we do things is we put things in a data center. So we like things to live in a server, and that's the kind of canonical place that we're doing stuff. I'm just going to make this smaller. But an alternative to this is to use peer-to-peer storage. So we're going to go through a few of these examples here. So the first one, and again, this is going to be weird for everyone. Wait, where are we here? So this first one is going to explain is this content. So it's going to be weird with the delay. Basically, what I've got here is I've got world. Sorry, I can't type world. So I've got this. This is basically a traditional web server now, and I can kind of put in whatever I wanted. Low Fusion. But what's cool about this is you can basically reload this page. It reconnects, repulls down that content, and that content only exists within this browser session. There's nowhere that it exists, but yet I can reload the page and see it, and load it from other browsers as well. A similar kind of thing, which should work a bit more effectively, is we've got this chat option, and this is now a chat server. And so if I say, we've had some hellos, hello everyone. And just to kind of show the options with this, we can kind of like make these modifiers. So any message now turns to uppercase. And so now, even though I'm doing like hello, it comes out heckle Elsmore. kind of. And we've got other options, like I can turn on pirate mode. So instead of hello world, it will say ahoy world in uppercase now. And yeah, we've got all this. I think uppercase pirate is the way forward. Just to show some more options with other data types, we've got this camera thing, and I'm just going to give you a bit of like warning with this. What it's going to do is it's going to ask for access to your webcam, and then if you grant that, it's going to capture a picture of you, and then it's going to plonk it onto the screen so that everyone can see it. So if you're not comfortable with that, just like leave it or cancel or cover your mic, cover your webcam. Sorry, I'll turn off the shouting. Cool. So I'm going to give it a few seconds so that will filter through the YouTube stream. So yeah, again, don't accept the camera thing if you don't want me to take your picture. So on here, what we can do is we can launch a camera, so now your web page is turned into a camera. You're probably not going to know what's going on with this stream latency. When I press take a picture, hello, it's going to take a picture and stream it back to that server. So you've got Mike there and me, and I think that's you've got a few other people. That's kind of nice. So we're able to kind of capture this content back on. So yep, that is cool. And then the last one I was going to show you is this, which is a thing that I'm really excited about, which is basically connecting a server window to external processes. So here I've got a microcontroller here. And what I can do is I can connect this microcontroller over Bluetooth Low Energy. So it is this one here. And now when you press one of these buttons, you should be able to turn the LEDs on and off. So you can see now we have control over LEDs. So I'm going to turn them off. Well, anyway, yeah. So basically what we're doing is we're kind of running a web server on a microcontroller connected to another web browser, which is pretending to be a web server to other web browsers, and it's kind of coming through that. The pressed thing, so it's not currently pressed, whereas if I press this down and you query this, you're actually kind of getting content from the puck. And then this has a temperature sensor in, so we can actually see the real temperature from inside this room, which is really warm, I think. And I can put this in my hand and heat it up, and so we can kind of see that kind of stuff. So we're able to kind of connect together stuff through this kind of approach. I'm very almost done, Mike. Sorry about this. Cool. So yeah, that's super hacky and kind of weird, but there are less hacky ways that this kind of stuff is happening. One of these is IPFS, which is Interplanetary File System. This is a distributed peer-to-peer kind of data transfer thing. Super cool. Beaker browser, which used to use DAT when I took the screenshot, but now uses other tech called Hypercore. This is a protocol that allows you to kind of do peer-to-peer, kind of like torrent, but richer and like live. So those are worth checking out if you're into this kind of stuff. Scuttlebutt is another one which is super cool. This is an offline first decentralized kind of social network. I could have just read it there. And yeah, this web page has got a video on it which explains it through a love story, which is super cool, really cool. Yeah, I really dig this. There's not only do we and I feel like we own it. Like it kind of feels like GeoCities kind of thing. Like there's something really fun about it. But there's also performance potential, like being able to access large amounts of content just from between peer-to-peer communication. It could be a lot faster in some cases. Do you know what? I am going to skip this section because it's boring. It's not that boring. It is quite fun, but there's some cool stuff. This is cool. This is a game called JS Joust, and my point with this is that this is a computer game, whereas it looks really kind of awesome and real. Cool. Right. Okay. On to the last section. This is it, and I hope. I'm sorry for going over time so much, but right. Okay. So we've had that other thing, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was a thing that we do is we try and implement the same feature across all of our devices, right? Like, so the magical thing about the web is that you can provide content and it will be visible on many different platforms. So I can load a web page on a laptop, or I can load it in a phone, and that just works. But I think there's I think we can fall down this trap sometimes where we think that this means that we have to have feature parity between those two devices, that we need to, like, because you can do a particular thing in one browser, in one device, doesn't like goes across to us having to do it in the other as well. I think this sometimes comes down to how we write user stories. Like we meant this is a rubbish user story because it mentions the implementation really strongly. And so it kind of puts us down this path. And bringing this back to like the mixing up how the web should be, I think this is, unlike the initial stories, this is one that the web is always supposed to be like this, and we've kind of diverged from it. We've made the web into like this kind of monolithic interaction ideal. So this is the web. So this is World Wide Web, the first ever web browser. Tim Berners-Lee sitting here, and it displays like images, text, all this kind of stuff. Really kind of cool. So this program does. The computer it's running on is a Next workstation, which is at the time was a relatively powerful, quite expensive, awesome machine. So they kind of revolutionized how graphical user interfaces could be used, and yeah, really kind of cool machine. But I really think this is super cool, this World Wide Web thing. But I think I really like the second ever web browser, and that was Line Mode. So Line Mode was written by someone on Tim's team called Nicola, and she got tasks with making the second web browser, and this worked completely in the terminal, which is cool. And at the time, this basically broadened the accessibility of the web so much, right? Like, so you didn't need a kind of next step, as someone pointed out. You didn't need one of those machines. You could run this if you just had a basic terminal, even if you had like a keyboard and a printer. You know, like you could suddenly access all this kind of web content, which is super cool. And yeah, what I really like is like broadening accessibility of the web and improving the separation of web APIs and web browsers, and like saying that browsers can adapt to hardware, whereas like the web can stay consistent, and those two can coexist. And then yeah, this showing that browsers can be different, I think was a really kind of powerful aspect of that. Modern browsers have all these kind of features available to them. As we looked into Bluetooth, we've got like WebXR now, speech recognition, all these different ways of interacting with devices. And like, I don't think we need to kind of constrain ourselves to doing a single kind of interface with this. So my kind of totally made up alternative to this is think about interfaces of function, right? Like, so if we're trying to work out what features to provide, then that's basically a function of like the content we're trying to make, the capabilities that the device has, and the context which the device is being used. And these three things, to me, seems like it kind of helps focus on what we should be building in the first place. So yeah, I dig this. I think it gives us a really great excuse to be using stuff like WebXR or Web Bluetooth. Like we should be like, and how to embrace these. It avoids over perfection. Like I like the idea of like pixel perfect or striving to have something that is of that kind of high definition perfection is, I think it can be harmful, right? Like it's not always that useful. And it keeps us focused on like what we're trying to provide. Because I think as developers, I sometimes worry that we get trapped in this thing of like thinking our job is to code, when actually our job isn't to code. Our job is to write code to help something else happen, right? Like it's to help someone do something, or a car do something, or you know, like, so it's not about the actual kind of like implementation. It's about the kind of effect of it. And I think, yeah, it always helps me to kind of like think on those levels. So in summary, all these things are cool, you know, like they work for us. Yeah, like they're brilliant. There are alternatives, and if those alternatives work for you too, that's also cool. Everything's cool. And that's all I got. So I hope I've not been like muted all this time or something like that. So yeah.
You're good, and you're so entertaining. We could keep you for longer.
I did have to skip a section. Wait, how can I do this?
You probably would have been fine, mate.
Oh no, it's like I sometimes, every so often, I get this feeling where I'm just like, what am I talking about? Like, is it? So yeah, I think I was hitting one of those. Sorry.
This is why timers are great.
Yes, I've been. Yeah, timers are good. I was gonna set a timer, but then I realized the mess of stuff that I've got happening at the moment, I wouldn't have even noticed. You know, like you would have been like, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, no, that's it. That's how we can change the web or something.
Please tell me you're not going to coin it as Web 3.0.
I think just skip straight to like 5 or something like that.
We're not living in the PHP world.
Yeah.
We do have questions for you.
Fantastic. I'm super.
I do have some as well, just in case, but we have questions. Okay, so Alex Wilson, is there a nice recommended way of handling updates to the schema over the web? Can it fall back with GQL, etc.? Well, GQL.
Yeah, no, that's super cool question. Like, so there is an introspection API for gRPC, which allows you to kind of like see what current versions of services are running on a particular machine. It's a bit kind of like opt-in, which sucks, but like there's not a standard, like, because GraphQL has that, like you can access like /schema or something like that, and it gives you the current schema, right? I think that's how it works. But yeah, no, like I would say it's not as experience. It doesn't come from the same direction as GraphQL, I'd say, in that it's a bit more strict. Like it probably comes more from the world of like, building large complex systems that lots of things plug together or something like that. But great question though. I've been in kind of working out this stuff. I've like been trying to work out where it fits in terms of like GraphQL, REST, gRPC, and all these kind of things. But I don't quite know. Was that an answer? I don't know. I just felt like I spoke.
It's an answer. I'm not sure if it answers Alex's question, but it's an answer.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another one, which is question. We've had P2P connections with things like Nutella for ages, and there must have been people talking about implementing P2P through API browsers. Why has this taken so long? Why am I just hearing about it?
Like WebRTC has been around for years, right? Like, so like, oh. Yeah.
It's like, are you just like talking about peer-to-peer JS? No, this is a whole next level.
The what, sorry?
Peer-to-peer JS, a library that was released 6 or 7 years ago to do a stun-based peer-to-peer.
So Peer.js, that's a library, but WebRTC. Oh, sorry, I was opening it. I thought I was still screen sharing. Sorry, WebRTC has been around for what, like about like almost like 10 years or something like that, like almost around that amount. And it's weird. Peer.js is like a really cool library for using it. That popped up on Hacker News like 4 months ago, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at this!" And it's just like, no, this has been around for a while. It's when I first heard about WebRTC, I was fully expecting like this is where we're going with the web. You know, like this is what's going to happen. But it's just for some reason it's just not been like utilized that much. The APIs are a bit awkward. Like they kind of come from like telephony world kind of thing, you know, like, so it's like the messages are very great if you're into that stuff, but a bit odd if not. But there's some cool wrappers. So Peer.js is one. There's also Simple Peer, I think, is another one. And like I'm really surprised that I've not heard more like startups doing kind of like data channels as a service kind of thing, because it's just it's necessary. But yeah, it also gets eclipsed quite a lot by the audio video stuff. Like if you have a WebRTC company, you tend to be doing video and like recording and stuff, whereas so the demos on on PRPC, they all use Twilio's stun and turn servers. So
I was wondering if it was going to be a Talkbox or Twilio you were using as the examples.
Yes, and it's like, and so I messaged Phil from Twilio, and I was just like, "Hey, I'm really interested in using your stun and turn servers," and he's like, "All right, cool." Like it was, it seemed like not the usual kind of ask, you know, like usually it's just like, how do I connect 100 people in a video call or something? And like, I just want to use your servers.
A Ben demo. This is what we all expect.
But
Okay, so we do have a question, but I think that one was answered, which is, oh, is there a peer server here then? At which point the answer was yes, you were just faking it. Oh, is there a peer server here?
So the signaling in PRPC is a custom Lambda AWS Lambda gateway service that uses JSON Web Tokens for like authenticating a client, and it's stored in the session storage. So if you open up another window, it doesn't have the same credentials, just to kind of like make things a bit easier and like massively over bloated. But so my plans with this, I really think it's a great fun thing to do, and we've done a few kind of hackathons with it, kind of thing. But I really want it to be a kind of like open service that people can upload a schema to, and then run it in their own apps. You know, like, so I think that's kind of where I want to take it. I think, if that makes sense.
Okay. Here's a question that's a long one, so I apologize if I fall over halfway through reading it. Dale Salmon says, where do we draw the line between WebRTC and WebSockets via server? For instance, messaging apps like Slack, Facebook, WhatsApp could connect clients via server and hand off to WebRTC P2P.
Yeah, like there's some kind of like I guess you get more control and scalability if you've got WebSockets. Like, so if you needed to kind of like keep 1,000 people in sync or like messaging, you're probably like, that's when you hand off to WebSockets and stuff, because then you can have like a kind of star topology kind of thing. But with so scalability is like the classic problem. So how to handle lots of people. There are ways around it though. So because data channels give you you can have up to 256 connections. So you're kind of like, you can do that. And if you're not using that much network, it's not too bad. But you can have, again, it's something I've not seen, but I think could exist, which is like, you could have a sparse mesh. So like kind of not every peer connects to every other peer, but you could have a sparse mesh and use something like the Hypercore protocol, which uses a kind of like signed data property. So it allows you to kind of share stuff through intermediary peers. And you could do something like that, which would allow you to have like the kind of WebSocket-y centralized security, but without a centralized WebSocket thing. Does that make sense? Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I feel like this is like whiteboard shit.
Like it's a point of scale. It's a point of the amount of information you need to scale
out.
That's
a fair answer.
Peer to peer, you end up having to like knock on two peers to then reach the rest of the network. WebSockets, blast it out to 10,000 people.
Yeah,
no F's totally given.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess there are potential issues of like support, right? Like, so, in fact, the person who asked before, with like with why WebRTC isn't everywhere, or why don't I know about it? Like, one of the big answers to that as well is Safari, right, and iOS, and it's just like, because we had native support on the Firefox, Chrome, like tons of other browsers, I think. But yeah, basically, it was all standardized, all super cool, but Safari iOS just wasn't shipping it for ages, and I think it kind of like went live like last year, and yeah. But then what happened with that was like we missed the initial buzz, right? Like the time when everyone should have been like, everything's going to be WebRTC now, would have happened like 8 years ago. But it's like, it's kind of like been like a little bump, like about the one thing though with like lockdown and working remotely, these techs are like so much more. They've got a real good use case now.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, my brain is just going, Ben demos. Normally, given to a crowd of 500 people doing random crap in a browser. It's been a while since I've seen one. What can I say?
Oh yeah, no, it's like I've missed demoing. Yeah, no, I was thinking this year, like, because I messaged and like got in touch with Hannah and stuff. I was like, I don't think I've been that active in like the tech scene recently, and I'm really happy to come back to things like this and chat to people and find out what's going on, right? Like, yeah. But
well, is there anything you would like to share with the crowd? Any self-promotional jazz that you know?
So I mentioned we're looking for developers, like hiring, and I'm really excited about that. So if you know anyone who'd be interested in working like autonomy and kind of tech stuff, yeah, saw that. Yeah, so yeah, I give me a shout. And the other thing is we've been doing remote hack. I don't know if I've mentioned to you about it. So for like, I think this month is going to be like our year anniversary. So we've been doing every month. A few of us get together and have a bit of a hack. And it's super fun and super nice. And it's just like a small group. Everyone's welcome. And I'd love to see other people there. So yeah, give me a shout.
Share it in the chat. Share it in the chat. I'll share the links and I'll join because I have nothing better to do.
Ah, brilliant. Yeah, no, it's like, so what's been odd and brilliant is that it's initially we started like a kind of like traditional hack day kind of thing, whereas it's turned into this like just a real chill time to socialize in like weird times, you know, like, and it's like, and it's, I've just really enjoyed connecting with people and doing stuff like, so yeah, it's been good. So
well,
yeah.
Share the links so I can share them out. Thank you very much, Ben. Are you going to stick around for the Zumo or are you going to disappear?
Yeah, totally. Where
excellent.
Yeah,
with our fake beers.
Yeah, totally.
But yes, so I'm going to drop you off and drag in Hannah for the end of the evening.
Hi, Hannah. Hi, I'm back.
Well, hopefully Ben is remembering to drop a link into the chat so I can drop that just before we set you off on the closing section. Go on, Ben. I can see you typing. I bet he doesn't like the... There we go. I've got a tiny little one. There we go. Remote hack. I wish I'd known about this before. There we go. So people want to take part in remote hack and its yearly anniversary. There we go. So instead of me boring you all with the end of the evening, I'm leaving it to Hannah. So Hannah, you good for this? Like, it's your show, kiddo. Enjoy. I'll see you over in the Zumo.
See you. Thank you. Still. Okay, so just to wrap things up, so thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. I know it's not as exciting when you're sitting at home, so really appreciate everyone staying with us for this evening. There's just a couple of things we like to obviously talk about other events in the Birmingham tech scene. I know we're not all physically there together, but the Birmingham I/O calendar has every single tech event in Birmingham and the surrounding areas on, so have a look at it. And also you can check it out on the Fusion Hub as well. Okay, a quick shout out. Some of you may have heard me banging on about these workshops. We have the most wonderful Dylan Beattie back with us again this year. His workshops last year were amazing. Obviously we'd be running these face to face and in person because they're so much better, but Dylan's setup is brilliant. He offers really, really good support, one-to-one support throughout, and they're really in depth, they're hands-on, so the attendees kind of leave with a really good working knowledge of what they've actually covered for those 2 days. So coming up, we've got the Real World Rest with C# and .NET, which is on April the 13th and 14th. The early bird tickets for those have now sold out. We sold the last 2, I think it was a couple of days ago. Dylan has, however, said for any attendees for this evening, there's a 20% off any of the workshops that are booked. So if you are interested in getting the discount code for either of the workshops that I'm going to mention now, just drop a message either in the live chat or if you can email us back via the Eventbrite link where you bought the tickets from. The second workshop is pure JavaScript web components. It's a really good workshop actually that kind of brings you back to basics. So if you haven't used JavaScript for a really long time, or if you're a newbie to the world of JavaScript, this is a great workshop for you. Both workshops are 2 days. The JavaScript workshop is on the 27th and 28th of April. There are actually still early bird tickets available for that. I don't know how many, but again, there's 20% off for any Fusion attendees this evening. If you want to have a look at more details of the workshops, check out the workshop page on the Fusion Hub. It will just break things down a little bit. And obviously, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask myself or Dylan. Okay, and with that, we're now going to head over to Kumo Space. I've tried to make it as much like the Cozy Club as we possibly can by picking the pub filter. So hopefully Jim and James and Mike and Andy will all be there. So thank you so much for this evening. It's been wonderful to be with you all tonight. And hopefully we'll see you over at Kumo Space. Bye.